Oh no. What are we gonna do? Views are down like never before. We need to turn it around as soon as possible. What are we gonna do, Ashton? Think, man, think. Use that big brain of yours. Yes, people, it's Ashton here, and welcome to your controller settings guide for Apex Legends Season 11. Yeah, I know, I promised I was never going to make another controller settings video. With an also guide for you guys on how you can find the best controller settings for you. Well, about that. Since it's been 2 whole seasons since we last went over my controller settings, and how going into Season 11, there's going to be a bunch of brand new players coming into Apex who need help adjusting their settings to be the right settings for them. Let's go over all the most important controller settings in Apex Legends, the settings I use personally, and how you guys can find the best settings to suit your playstyle. We're going to kick things off with one which might be controversial to some of you, and that is going to be the crouch button, whether or not you play on toggle to crouch or hold to crouch. Now, a lot of good Apex players swear by hold to crouch like it's some sort of holy cheat code into avoiding bullets like you're in the Matrix when you're crouch spamming. For those of you who don't know what crouch spamming is, it's when you crouch very, very quickly in order to dodge bullets and make your body smaller whilst strafing. I personally have always played on toggle to crouch. The difference is that when you use hold to crouch, you have to hold the crouch button in order to stay crouched, and when you use toggle, you only have to press it once and then you're going to stay crouched until you press it again, and then you're going to stand up again. It's really not that big of a difference. For this one, I'd just say go with whatever feels right for you. I mean, a lot of people will tell you that if you're not using hold to crouch, then you're missing out on something, but honestly, I've gotten to pred every season easily using toggle to crouch and never seen it as an issue at all. And the biggest benefit for toggle to crouch is that all you caustic players can sit in corners with gas traps at every door and not even have to hold the controller. It's an absolute miracle.
It's simple, really. I'm just better than you.
I can tell this is one that's going to trigger all of you Wraith mains. The survival slot button is an option in which you can have a button on your controller, usually the D-pad, either use your survival kit like the heat shields or the revive beacon, or you can choose to inspect your weapon. To put it simply, the controller doesn't have enough buttons to do every input that Apex can offer you, so you have to choose between a survival kit item or a weapon inspect. Pretty easy choice, I know. But in all honesty, the obvious choice is obviously the survival slot button. I mean, it makes sense if you're in Storm to be able to pull out those heat shields very, very quickly. If you have to go through your inventory to do it the long way, it may cost you a couple of ticks of Storm damage, which could be the difference between life and death. Menu cursor speed is a pretty straightforward setting, but one which actually can make or break your game in many ways. Now, the most important reason that you want to have a good steady menu cursor speed is because it is going to influence how quickly you can get those shield swaps off. I've got mine set to just below halfway because that personally is what I'm used to, and I've built up a muscle memory, and that's a phrase you're going to hear a lot in this video, by the way. I've built up a muscle memory for this setting so I can get the shield swaps off really quickly because I know just how much pressure I need to put on my analog stick in order to get over the shield before pressing A. Having this at a speed which is too fast for you is obviously going to cause you to skip over the items that you want in the Deathbox, which means you're actually going to end up looting for longer, when setting this to the highest speed probably means you want to be looting faster. So just set it to a speed which is fast enough, but not too fast that you're skipping over all the items you want, and you should be just fine. The taking damage closes Deathbox menu option is something which came in towards the middle of Apex's lifespan, and this setting was an absolute godsend when it finally came into the game. You want to turn this setting off. Basically what it means is that when you take damage whilst looting a Deathbox, it's not going to kick you out of the Deathbox if you have this setting turned off. What this means is you're going to be able to take damage whilst looting death boxes, and whilst this may seem like a bad thing, what it means is you can get those shield swaps off, so you might take a couple of points of damage, maybe 30 or 40 damage, but if you get that purple armor swap, then it really doesn't matter that you took that damage, and you can get back into the fight with a fresh shield swap. If you have this setting turned on, whilst looting death boxes, if you take even a single point of damage, the game will kick you out of the death box right back into the action, and this can be detrimental if you're just trying to grab a quick shield swap and you don't mind taking a few points of damage, but you just can't get into the box because every time you get in there, it kicks you straight out.
That was a nice one clip. Comment, sit down stinky if you agree.
All new players into Apex should have their performance display turned on. This is going to keep track of your FPS counter, your ping, and every other important statistic that you might need in order to judge whether your connectivity is good, if your frames are dropping, all of that important stuff. It's super important to have performance display turned on. There's absolutely no reason to have this one turned off. Like the video, amigos. It helps Ashton out a lot. Colorblind settings are ones that everyone loves to change, and they swear it has a massive impact on their game. It doesn't. I'm telling you now, it really doesn't. Wait a minute, what is that? Does that say subscribe to the channel for more regular Apex Legends content? Cool, I think you should do that. The majority of players which play with this setting aren't even colorblind, but if you are colorblind, then needless to say, just pick the one which is right for you and run with it. But if you're not colorblind and you still want to play with the colorblind settings, then just pick one which looks nice for you. I mean, it makes no difference really. Personally, I like the this one, because it keeps the colors mainly the same as the base colors, but they just appear a little bit brighter, and reticles are yellow instead of red, which I like. Okay, let's get into the meat of the video. The sensitivity, I know that's what you guys have been waiting for this whole time. So, I use a look sensitivity, which, by the way, means when you're not ADSing, when you're just looking around freely as normal, the look sensitivity that I use on my controller is a 5.
Aha! In your last video, you said your look sense was 6. Why's it gone down?
Now, as many of you will know, back in Season 8, I used to play Apex on a console, on Xbox specifically, and I ran a sensitivity of 6.4. The reason that's changed since then is that I have moved on to PC, and the difference in the game playing on PC is absolutely massive. I'm since then playing on a 144Hz monitor at a roughly around 180 to 200 frames per second, which is a lot different to the 60 frames per second that I was used to on console. To put it bluntly, the game plays a lot smoother on PC, and having a 6 sensitivity felt a lot different on PC than to on console, so I knocked it down to a 5. Since doing this at the start of my time on PC, I have not once touched my sensitivity. I feel it is the perfect speed for me, right down the middle. It offers a good balance for hip fire and looking around, and isn't too fast, but is fast enough so that when I'm in those close quarters engagements and I need to go around corners quickly or I need to hip fire freely, it does do it quick enough for me to have a good amount of speed in order to do that as fast as I want to. As for my ADS sense, this has dropped from a 4 to a 3 for much the same reason as my look went from a 6 to a 5. Really, it is just the same. It offers a good amount of stability for me and isn't too fast that I can't track people, and this is something that I'll stick with for the remainder of Apex Legends. Now, for those of you who do want to dive into the advanced look control settings, because I know there are going to be a bunch of you out there, we're going to briefly go over what they all mean. I personally don't use any ALCs, so I can't go over what I use because, like I said, I don't use them. At the top of the ALC list, we have the dead zone and response curve, which of course is in relation to your stick drift and how your stick input responds on screen with what you're seeing. So obviously, like with the normal response curve setting outside of ALCs, this is one that you definitely want to make sure you get right if you are going to mess around with your ALCs. Just below this, you're going to have your per optic sensitivity, and below that, you're going to have your yaw and pitch speed settings, which is for your normal look sensitivity when you're not ADSing down your sights. Under that, you're going to have your ADS yaw speed and pitch speed, which is exactly the same as above, but specifically for when you are ADSing down sights. And below that, you're going to have target compensation, aka aim assist, aka aimbot. Yeah, just straight up, don't turn this one off. You're not going to have a good time. FOV settings are super important for a game like Apex, as it's going to completely dictate how much you can see on your screen at any given time. Pretty much, there is absolutely no reason to have this zoomed all the way in, unless you have absolutely shocking eyesight. In my last video, I explained how I was using a 96 FOV, and since then I have turned it all the way up to 110. I will never change this now that I'm on PC. This just works absolutely the best for me, and yeah, I can't ever see myself zooming in anymore. 110 is the best in my opinion, and you'll find a lot of good players in Apex do run 110 FOV simply because it allows them to see the most on their screen at any given time. Now, as I say in all of my settings videos, you guys should find the sensitivity which works best for you. I know not all of you are going to be PC players on high frames per second and 144 or better hertz monitors. Some of you are going to be on console at 60 frames per second and 60 hertz monitors, and honestly, that's fine. I was that kind of player for the longest amount of time. As always, what I suggest for you guys when choosing sensitivity is to find one that works for you and stick with it. Basically, a lot of players love to blame their sense for when they're playing bad, and it's almost never the case. Once again, we're going to go back to that phrase of muscle memory. Your brain and your hands are going to get used to how fast something reacts on screen over time. It doesn't just happen instantly, so switching sensitivity all the time up and down is just going to make it a lot harder for you to get used to any sorts of sense. As for your per optic sensitivity, I keep those turned off myself. I suggest you guys do the same, but if you are going to change them, then I would say only change them for the 6x sniper scope and the 4-8 sniper scope, because those can be a little bit on the slow side sometimes. Response curve is a setting that a lot of people can get very confused at what it means and what it does, but it's actually very simple to understand. Basically, the response curve determines the speed at which the game registers the movement of your reticle in response to when you move the thumbstick or analog stick on your controller. Some response curves are more steady and maintain the same amount of speed regardless of how long you're holding the stick down for, whereas some are slower build up, and the longer you hold the stick in one direction, the faster it gets. This again is going to be a personal preference setting for you, but I do highly recommend that you don't go changing this all the time, because again, the muscle memory factor is going to play a massive part in getting used to a response curve. Unless it feels completely wrong to you when you switch response curve, I would say stick it out. Personally, I've always played on the classic response curve, and I don't intend on ever changing because I just feel completely used to it at this point, and there's no point changing it. We've also got the look dead zone setting, which is a counter to stick drift. Stick drift is when your stick gets stuck in one direction or another and it drags your aim off. A lot of people do have this with controllers that they've had for a longer time. Honestly, I prefer having no look dead zone because I personally don't have any stick drift on my controller, but a lot of people who do have it will prefer to have a small look dead zone. Basically, the bigger the look dead zone, the more you'll have to pull the stick to one side in order to actually get it to look in that direction. It is entirely a counter to stick drift. If you haven't tried with playing with no look dead zone, then definitely give it a go. It does feel a little bit weird at first, but personally, I've always stuck with having it off since trying because I find it allows me to be way more precise with my aiming, but that is because I don't have any stick drift, so definitely do not leave this off if you do, because your game's going to be flying all over the place. And last but not least, the most important setting in the game that you must have switched on at all times: vibration. I hope you guys enjoyed my breakdown of my personal controller settings for Apex Legends Season 11. If you did, make sure to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel for more regular Apex Legends content from your boy. Until next time guys, it's been your boy Ashton, and I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy and goodbye.